All right, thank you very much, Kelly. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order tonight, Monday, June 10th, 2024. Kelly, can you please start us off with a roll call?
Yeah, Commissioner Crosby,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Vincent,
Here.
Commissioner Pullen,
Here.
Commissioner Myram, Commissioner Ramsayer is excused, I believe, and Chair Wagoner.
Here. Thank you very much. We'll go right into our approval of what will be our June 10th minutes. It's been a couple months. But does anybody have any changes, notes, additions, deletions, requests of the minutes from June?
I have nothing other than, I don't know if Rebecca probably caught it. You said today's meeting was June 10.
Oh, I said to meetings. Sorry, our meeting today is August 26th.
There you go.
So that'll help with next time's minutes.
She would have caught it.
Uh,
No, I don't have anything.
all right. Hearing nothing, we'll consider the minutes from the June 10th meeting approved. And then we will move into requests from the floor. So at this time, the commission welcomes anybody who's in attendance comments at this time. If you're participating online, go ahead and click that raised hand button and wait to be recognized. And if you are participating via telephone, dial *9. If you're in the room today, just go ahead and let us know. But again, this is the time for anything that's not related to items on today's agenda. And Kelly, I don't think we have anybody online.
Besides the commission and staff, and then the one person in the audience physically here, that's the people.
Excellent. Hi. Perfect. Then we will go ahead and move on to the director's report.
Yeah, I put together a pretty short one this month for you, just updating you on the ERU allocation for the moratorium. I did put a little short blurb. We're going to be every city over 10,000, I think it is, in the state of Oregon. So Sandy falls into that category since we're almost at 14,000. We have to go electronic, or have to allow electronic plan review for our building division. There was a House bill passed a couple years ago, and that has to take place by January 1st, 2025. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve. We had to buy like a $8,000 plan review module table so you could actually review them. Otherwise, you're on a screen and you can't make edits very easily. So there was some expenses related to it and some training. The state has been very helpful though in getting us trained on it. So that's been really nice. And I think we're going to start in early October accepting electronic plan review for entire new houses and commercial buildings as like a trial run with a few builders that have said that they would be willing to send them to us for like a trial. And then starting January 1st, we'll have to accept anybody that wants to submit it electronically. It's a pretty big step. We're a pretty small staff, and just 7 or 8 years ago, we still had like a dot matrix printer and stuff. So in 7 or 8 years, we've really come a long way. And now we're going to be doing electronic plan review.
That's awesome. My current job, a good portion of it was training on going online. I know what a big...
It's a big hurdle.
It's a big
especially when
hurdle.
you have a small staff that is used to doing something a certain way for decades.
Yeah.
And then it's, okay, now we're going to change and go the other way.
I don't think it gets any easier with the big staff.
No, probably not. You probably didn't have other issues
Yeah.
and hurdles. But yeah, it's really going to be a game changer in the fact that you're not going to actually have to drop off physical plan sets at the city of Sandy anymore. You know, we used to, Jerry, you probably remember, we used to have like the green folders that we'd bring into the office here. About 2 or 3 years ago, we went fully electronic with planning. I think about 2 years ago. And so the only thing we get now are like big plan sets, but everything else is fully electronic, and building is going to become the same way. So the nice thing is there's a lot less storage needs. Before we had so much file cabinets around the city, and that's kind of going away over time. So that's the one big benefit.
Yeah, that's a big project. So nice work.
Yeah. And then just a few other small things here. We have the old boarding house that had a structural fire about 10, 11 years ago. It's 2 doors down from Two Brothers Mexican. It's across from the liquor store, that old house that's just been sitting there kind of derelict for about a decade now. That was recently purchased by a new property owner. And she's gonna demo it, I think maybe this week or next. And then after that, you're gonna see a new building go up in its place. And the reason why it can be built right now during the moratorium is because the old building had existing ERUs that were paid for back in the 1970s, I believe it was, through sewer SDCs. And then since we're now running some of the city, well, half of the city's code enforcement with the police department as being the other half, just giving you your monthly updates on code enforcement updates. Being summer, we had a lot of noxious vegetation. And quite a bit of junk accumulation at some houses around town. I don't know if you've seen a few of them, but a few of them have gotten pretty bad. Where I think one we've received 40 complaints. So we're working with the homeowner or trying to, and also with their mortgage company now, because it's just, there's no resolution happening. Even with over $100,000 in fines. So, yeah. So we're, you know, our first, how I always do code enforcement and how, you know, the city council wanted to see it set up first too, is we really do give people a lot of opportunities to come into compliance, and we're really flexible with deadlines. So as long as they keep communicating with us and keep showing progress. Unfortunately, we've had a few cases where they just completely ignoring us to the point of daily fines at, you know, $3,000 won't even do anything. So it's unfortunate because those do go on as liens onto the property. So when that seller goes to sell it, the first thing that's paid off is government liens. And so if you have $100,000 in liens, it's going to be the first thing that gets paid off even before the bank loan or anything. So it's really unfortunate. We try our best, but fortunately we're right there with a few cases. And then the only other thing I was going to bring up is something we were kind of already talking about before the meeting. I don't really have anything for you in September unless one of the two items tonight gets continued to September, which I hope is not the case, but if it is, we'll continue it to September. And then I think I'm gonna probably have to sit down with you, Chair, and talk through kind of what you want to see as like kind of a work plan and what you guys would like to kind of tackle. I do know of a few land use apps that will be coming before you in the next 3 to 4 months, but because of the moratorium, it's just not what it once was.
Right.
And you're probably not going to see heavy land use applications for type 3s and type 4s again until we get that other 190 ERUs, and that's at least 2 years out. So we're going to kind of sit down and talk about kind of a work plan idea.
Sounds good.
So, and that's all I had, unless you had any questions.
Any questions for Kelly? All right, with that, we'll move into our first of 2 hearings tonight. We'll go ahead and open file number 24038, the Rayburn Detached Shops variance. First of all, we'll go ahead and call for any abstentions from the hearing body. Any conflicts of interest from the hearing body? All right, any ex parte contact, including site visits? All right, and then if there are any challenges to the hearing body, now is the time to bring a challenge. If you're participating online, go ahead and click that raised hand button. And if you're participating or like to challenge in person, go ahead and do so now. All right, we're going to go ahead and call for, when it's time, call for testimony in 3 different groups: testimony in favor of the proposal, testimony opposed to the proposal, and neutral testimony. Just like everything else so far tonight, if you're online and wish to testify at the appropriate time, click the raised hand button and wait to be recognized. Or if you're dialing by, or if you're listening by phone, dial *9. And then of course we'll call for it in the room at the appropriate time as well. If you do testify, you must raise all issues you wish to address at this hearing. If your issue is not raised in this hearing, it cannot be raised at a later appeal. Your comment should state why the application should or should not be approved, or include your proposed modifications you believe are necessary for the approval according to the standards. Because this is the initial evidentiary hearing, state law grants any party the right to request a continuance of this hearing or ask that the record remain open after the hearing is closed. If you do not raise any specific issues at the final evidentiary hearing or by the close of the record, or fail to provide statements or evidence to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal the decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals on this particular issue or that particular issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. And after all of that, we'll go to, is it Patrick with staff report or Kelly?
It's Patrick.
Excellent.
Let me just get this going for him here. I have the presentation, just the 21, whatever.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. So part of the packet, you guys have probably read through the staff report and a lot of the details and criteria of it, but I wanted to supplement it with just a quick PowerPoint that will kind of point out a little bit more about the physical attributes of this this particular property, in this case before you. I think the first thing to point out is the location, or actually the address, being 40,155 Highway 26. So this parcel is about roughly 3.5 acres. It's largely undeveloped, primarily because it does come with steep slopes that will come a little bit more into focus in a slide or two. The property is residential. Part of what we were looking at when we looked at this is its uniqueness and differentiate it from your typical residential lot that you find in subdivisions. The city is already pretty generous with the 1,200 square foot accessory structure, which I don't believe probably a lot of the single family lots in these subdivisions could handle, because they're roughly pretty small and they're designed that way. But this property is quite large, can accommodate both 1,200 square foot, which it roughly has about now. It has a structure that's roughly about that right now. On this side too, just wanted to point out, so this parcel is zoned residential. The property to the east, or to the right of this on the slide, is also residential, but the property to the to your left or to the west is zoned commercial, and it is also master planned or has a comprehensive plan map designation of commercial as well. Just this, I'll talk a little bit more about it in another slide. That's go to the next slide. Here, I just want to kind of point out the fact that here are your two variances, one for expanding nonconformity, one is for adding square footage beyond what the maximum allowed square footage is. But I wanted to point out that both these variances are intertwined. So meaning that to approve one, you'd have to approve the other. They can't be taken separately because they both rely on each other to be justified. Next slide. So this slide is a little bit what I was getting into as far as the slope. And I just wanted to point out, in case you're not familiar with topography maps and stuff, the lines on there are elevations, and the closer those lines are, the steeper that slope becomes. So you can kind of see how this property, it does have the overlay on it of the flood and slope hazard. And you can kind of see that darkness, that shadow over it is the overlay. So you can see how the property is the 3.5 acres is compromised down into this area of the ability to be developed. And on the left there, I tried to get try to give you guys a sense of that drop off, and these pictures really don't do it justice, but I mean, you can kind of tell it does just start to slope, and then it really just gets into almost such a steep slope that it'd be really hard to engineer any type of construction on that. And I think we'd have to go through a lot of engineering reports to even for the planning department to even accept it. I'll just go to the next slide. To get through this, so the current owners, they kind of inherited a mess on this particular structure. Actually, could we go back to that last slide? You go back. I want to point out, so you can see it's kind of in dark, and hopefully you guys can see it there, but that is the garage. The piece, the structure that's closest to Highway 26. Actually, the house is within, it's just off to the right there. It's actually in the flood slope hazard. So I just wanted to point out that, yeah, the structure that we're talking about is the structure that's closest to the road.
While you're on that slide, might I ask you what up in the upper right-hand corner, there was a dark kind of gully. Is that a body of water?
I think it is. Yeah, I think that is
Oh, okay.
Sandy Run. I think.
Do you mean on the property or to the north of the property?
North of the property.
I think that's Tenike Road.
This,
Is that
This one?
I think so.
yeah, you are right.
I think that's Tenike, actually. It's just, it does look like a body of water because it's, yeah, it's just how the aerial's done, yeah.
Mhm.
I can see how you could see that.
Yeah, I actually apologize. Yeah, I should have known that off the top because I do know that this property does actually front onto Tenike. So you can kind of see where it kind of narrows down. It actually does have access to it, but it's like extremely steep. I'm not even sure, maybe the applicant could tell us if there actually is a road that goes through there. I didn't really see an opening, but go to the next slide. So these are the current conditions. The existing accessory structure. It's got some add-ons, some lean-tos, all kind of rudimentary construction. The owners just want to, they've utilized the space, they utilize the equipment in it to maintain the property. Again, being a larger property than most residential parcels in the city. They do want to make it legal, so they want to kind of get rid of all of this mess. They want to create kind of a uniform look, building that will not only look nice, but actually add value to the property. Next slide. So this is some architectural drawings. There's something that I was introduced to that I've never heard of, which is a Dutch hip roof line. It's kind of what you see a little bit on the existing structure, but the addition that would go on the west side of this building will maintain the existing height. It'll also maintain like a 24-inch overhang on around the entire structure. The addition will continue all the existing materials, so it'll all be uniform in that way, except for, you'll see on the next thing, there is a 24 by 8 foot bump out that's going to have the applicants, at least on the plans that we've seen, have a different type of siding. Cedar shake is what they're proposing on their plans. And the concrete foundation is already poured. That was poured prior to the owners occupying the property. And where you see in the open areas where you can see kind of some of the equipment in those last slides, there'll be additional overhead doors. Next slide. This is just a little bit more expansion on the floor plan. You can see pointed out on the existing garage. So you can see you're doubling your space, and that was obvious probably as you're reading through the staff report. But again, with them trying to make trying to incorporate all of the lean-tos, the add-ons and stuff into one inclusive building and making it all uniform. You're looking at their final proposed floor plan. And then just lastly, again, that the planning commission, both of the variances have to be looked at, you know, can't approve or deny one or the other because they fall together. I gave you just a recommended motion if you decide to go that way as far as approving. If not, as I put on that last line, if you choose to deny the request, you must propose corresponding findings support that denial. And just to reiterate that the city did recommend approval on this, and primarily just because of its location. The size of the property, how the city currently, when it's dealing with accessory structures, doesn't really have a sliding scale when you're looking at, you know, various different parcels in the city. We don't feel like this is gonna set precedent because other properties would have to, you know, have the same type of attributes as far as, or physical attributes that would justify any type of these type of variances. The applicant is also mentioned to me, and I was fully aware of this when I visited the site, that the building actually acts as a sound buffer to Highway 26. It is extremely noisy road. And there's the air brakes that start right there because almost right at the property is where it hits 40 miles an hour and goes right down to 25. And people are just zooming by that. And then when they're leaving, they're almost, you can hear them revving up. You can hear them. So it's definitely obvious if you stand out on the site, the volume or the decibel level goes up there that you wouldn't find in a normal neighborhood. So these are some of the reasons, some of the things we took into account when we made our recommendation. That's all.
Thank you. If you'd like, you have, I'm assuming you're the applicant.
I am.
Excellent. Welcome. Come on up if you'd like. If you have anything to present, you have up to 15 minutes.
I don't know whether you all read the packet that I read. We submitted a bunch of drawings and paperwork and our narrative that describes, does that camera show me to them?
You're on there.
This one. We had a lot of points and we also had a lot of things that we didn't want to say about the property and about the zoning. As Patrick said, we inherited a lot of problems that we didn't know we were getting. This property, interestingly, zoned medium density, which I think you guys have at like 10 units per acre, or 14 or something. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. Really high density. Well, we learned really quickly how rough the access is getting in and out of this property. And I think until the adjacent property, which you saw, is divided, the frontage is commercial. I think until that property gets developed, the access is going to continue to be really poor. And as far as medium density goes, you've got this FSH overlay along the whole backside of the road over here. And every homeowner who's along there understands. I mean, it's tough just even to, actually, Patrick had some questions about the access on Tennick. We've lived there for 2.5 years and we don't know if an access was ever developed from Tennick to our property. We've literally never been down there and exactly looked at where our property lines, where the markers are. We don't know. It's definitely possible that someone had an access at some point, but there's so many young trees down there that probably not accessible that way. Our particular property was treed, which nothing else along that rim, if you will, has been treed recently. We don't know when, but I'm guessing about 20 to 30 years ago was treed. Probably right before the urban growth boundary came into play, I would guess sometime right before city got control of this area. And so someone could kind of cut a road in, and you actually can go down there, but our property being unusual in that. But long story short, there's deer, there's raccoons, there's squirrels and birds and rabbits galore. And it's just a beautiful green space that we see preserving. And as far as development goes, how eloquent can I be? It is our belief that the constraints imposed by the federal slope hazard overlay will continue to be a barrier for residential development for many years to come. Our property sat on the market for over 6 months, 2 years ago. No developer was interested at that time. I think that's going to continue to be the case. It's not worth the engineering permits that would be everything that would be needed to develop it. Now, granted, we could sit there and go, oh, hey, we want to put, 10 townhouses up here, tear down what's here and put in some townhouses. But again, the access is terrible. There's no sewer going out on that side of the highway for anyone over there yet. So there's all kinds of issues with development. In the meantime, my partner is retired and I work from home. He loves cars. We are country people. We have a tractor to mow our lawn and maintain our property. And he really he wants a great big garage. To him, it's a thing. It's something that he wants. And we also see it, and this is something that we both think about, what comes after us. And if someone doesn't want to come in and tear this whole property down and they actually want it, we're designing a stick-built building that could be used for any number of small type of businesses or work from home situations. We don't leave our property, but just a few days a week. And when we look at this modern culture of how people are wishing to be self-employed and wanting to reduce the impact on traffic and all of those related issues, one of our key points is that we're trying to build a building that has some value rather than something that's disposable or that would be better off torn down. So that's our goal. And the first step in that goal is the land use permit. We have a really strange situation with the tied in two variances. The one variance being the square footage limitation. Well, we're already almost there, and it's dinky. It's got to be the smallest 1,200 square foot you've ever seen in your life. It's a really small little garage, and we did have to replace the electrical. That was dated and inadequate, just even to run a garage, which was done with the county and legally approved and everything. The second portion variance that we need is the original building was put in the front yard of the house. And along with our original packet, we did submit a drawing showing the property in 1963 or something. Someone had surveyed for a cul-de-sac on this property. And if you look at our drawings that are in the packet, you see that the gas line actually comes in and loops around. And that when they installed the gas line, they actually installed it for these prospective 5 lots. So what was done was the one house was built, and then for some reason, unbeknownst to us, the rest of the project was put off indefinitely or not decided against. And we think at that time, the homeowner decided to position this little garage on what would have been the immediate lot to the west of what was the lot where they had chosen to build. At that time, the house had a view of the mountain and was treed down the slope, and they didn't have the federal slope hazard overlay in 1967, 68. And it was a very different town and community and world. So I don't know if there are any questions, but my main conclusion for you would be that we've worked very hard to understand the goals of the community in the vein of the Planning Commission. And as members of this community, we do feel we've put a lot of thought into our proposal. And we've worked closely with several conversations with development services in what needed to be submitted and what aspects of the code we needed to address to have even be considered for 2 type 3 special variances. Not normally something an ordinary homeowner has to deal with unless you're subdividing, my understanding. So we're just lucky. The staff conclusions, I think pretty much sum everything up the way I would hope they would. And their recommendation is what we would hope that you would consider, not to take it lightly, but that they've read through what we've said and they've come out and seen the site and they've agreed with our proposal as conservative and our best possible usage of this property at this time. So I don't know if I need to request a continuation or not, because obviously there would be more information that I would need to submit if we were to come to appeal. If I haven't provided you with enough information to make a decision. I didn't sit here and read you my narrative submittal because either you read it or you didn't. So salient points being, this is what we've got as a town, is this highway that is not being managed maybe as everybody would like right now. And development services is trying to knock out a lot of problems, and we're working very closely with them to make sure that everything comes together for this. So we hope that you approve our request for our wish to develop our property. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move into public testimony. I don't see any public online or in person, I don't think, that would like to testify. And so rather than going through it all, I think we'll just move on to the staff recap and recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, unless
I gave her a really hard look and she.
Yeah, you don't have anybody still in line from the public side, so.
Back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, I would just emphasize, I think, everything that the applicant had said, and again, we did look at this and went out to the site and we're really looking at this conservatively, what this could this have an impact on any future residential lot? And we felt that it was very unique in its own circumstances. Also, I think something the applicant said is important, that if this ever does continue on as commercial development, because it is adjacent and it very well could be, because it may be the best use would be that this accessory structure coming out to 2,400 square feet or 23 plus 100 square feet could have some kind of adaptive reuse to it as well. So I think that bodes well for allowing the applicant's request under these circumstances.
The only other thing I would add, because the applicant brought it up, is if there's a motion to approve it, that's one thing, but if there is a motion to deny it, I would ask that you do a straw poll first to determine if that has support or not, because the applicant did indicate that it sounds like if it's going that way, they would request the continuance. We don't have our attorney here tonight, but that's what our attorney would tell you to do. And then that way it gives the applicant the chance to bring more evidence before a final decision is rendered.
And that was gonna be my question to you, is how to,
Yeah, that's what I would do.
because obviously we don't want to continue it if we
No,
need to,
If
but
you have a motion on the floor to approve it,
Right.
and as an applicant, I don't know why they would want a continuance.
exactly.
But if you do get a motion to deny it, then before going through with that motion, I would do a straw poll and then ask the applicant if they want to continue it. Because they do have the right to do that, so.
All right, with that, you now have the option for a rebuttal. You have up to 5 minutes if you'd like to add anything else. No is a perfectly okay.
About what Kelly has said.
Sure. If you wanted to.
These guys are doing a great job over here.
All right. And then with that, we'll probably, if anybody's wanting, we'll look for a motion to close the public hearing and move on to discussion.
I move we close the public hearing at 7:05.
Second,
We do have a motion, and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, all opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Time for discussion. Anybody have anything that they would like to add, comment?
I didn't have anything. As I was reading it, I agreed with what Patrick came up with, all the reasoning, all the thoughts. I would jump to approval on it. I don't see why not myself.
I'm okay with that, but I did want to leave it for a second for anybody online. I didn't want to.
If Jerry was moving it, I'd second.
And that wasn't a motion. In my opinion, I'd be glad to make a motion, but
I concur with the staff's opinion. It's a
Yeah.
good project.
For all the reason noted, and I appreciate the collaboration. So I will look like I'll be looking for a motion here.
okay, I can do that. I'll just read this since Patrick wrote it up for us, but I move that the findings are in support of the approval criteria or have been met or explained to sufficient amount, and therefore recommend approval of the two proposed variances presented in file 24-038.
I second Jerry's motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Crosby, a second by Commissioner Poland. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And if I can, just for 1 second, we'll be writing up a final decision, which is signed by the chair.
Right,
So, but we'll probably have that to you next week sometime.
okay,
Just so you're aware.
thank you. Look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah, you too.
All right, moving right along. It looks like we're moving into a legislative hearing, file number 24040, CPA Vision 2050 comp plan amendment. Let's see here, we'll go ahead and open that file. And let's see, we'll once again call for abstentions from the hearing body on this issue.
Yeah.
None conflicts of interest from the hearing body. None. All right, and finally, any ex parte contact. Apart from living in Sandy, probably. And then any challenges to the hearing body. All right, hearing and seeing none all around. The same rules as last time for anybody who may be listening. Well, I'm speaking to myself pretty much though. If you wish to testify, you must raise all issues at the hearing. Your comment should state why the application should or should not be approved or include proposed modifications you believe necessary for approval according to the standards. If you do not raise specific issues at the final evidentiary hearing or by the close of the record or fail to provide statements or evidence to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal the decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that particular issue. Staff report.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it pretty brief here. So I just want to remind everybody that, we've been working on this project for, I believe,
Forever.
almost 3 years now. Maybe 3.5 years for myself, actually, from the original research of looking at the grants and working with the city council on their goal setting and everything else, maybe even 4 years, actually. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, we hired 3J Consulting. And Annie's and her team have been fantastic to work with. They've led a lot of the efforts, backed up with some staff assistants, including former staff members and current staff members. Patrick put this great 2-page staff report together that really is a high-level summary of kind of where we've gone over the last couple of years, including the outreach we've done, the main themes, the notices that we've done, the collaboration we've done with the state. And then Patrick also put together this ordinance that's before you tonight. You won't be taking, your motion wouldn't include passing the ordinance, of course, that'd be up to city council, but we wanted to include this in the packet for you to look through in case, in addition to the comp plan, which is exhibit B to the ordinance, we also wanted your input on if there's anything in the actual ordinance itself, which is ordinance 2024-18, or in the draft findings to that ordinance, which Patrick also put together. So we want your input on everything, essentially, before it goes to the city council. And so what we'll be looking from you tonight is a recommendation to the city council. We have that scheduled for a hearing on October 7th. So if you do have some changes or modifications to the ordinance, the findings, or the comp plan itself, we'll have a little bit of time to make those modifications before we go to the city council. The ordinance and the findings have been reviewed by our city attorney's office as well, after Patrick put them together. And then the comp plan document, which is, I think, 130 some pages, I believe. In addition to 3J and Patrick and myself reviewing it, we've also had city administration take a look at it, and several other staff members around the city to kind of get more eyes on the document. I think it's in a pretty good place. I'm proud of where we came, and where we're at this point. I think if you look, and Annie's might go into this, I'm not sure, but if you look at our last comp plan and then look at this comp plan, it's just night and day. The last one is like a document. And I'm not trying to detract or take anything away from all the people that probably worked on that document for several years. They did a fantastic job as well, but just I think the ability that this one has to kind of get the reader to actually look through it is so much better. Because the old one it's a very technical document that was kind of a boring read. I'll just be very honest. And this one, I think, with the pictures, the timeline, the land use gallery, the policies and goals, and just how polished the document is and how 3J and Patrick worked together to get it there. I just think it's a document we should all be very proud of going forward, and also be very proud of the policies and goals that it will set for the next 20 years for our city. So with that, I'll turn it over to Anise. I know I have your slideshow. Are you in the meeting yet?
I'm not in the meeting.
Okay.
Would you like me to be in the meeting?
If you were in the meeting, then you can share your slides so easier.
Oh, got it.
Did I send you the panelist invite? If not, you can just click on the link and then I can promote you to a panelist.
Perfect. Sorry, the link does. Apologies. See if I can join.
And just also while she's uploading that, one other thing I forgot to mention, which I think Patrick got in the staff report, is I think we've held like, Annie's probably has the number 7 or 8 work sessions on this with the council and invited the planning commission. So all the policies and goals you've seen, and even the document itself, we shared that at a work session. I believe it was in June.
Yes, the last joint work session was in June.
Okay, let me put my in here. And then there were some edits that were sent to us by Commissioner Hoganson or Councilor Hoganson, and then Commissioner Lee sent us her thoughts as well, which we thank you for. And then we also got some other input, so all of that's been incorporated as well.
It worked. How do I do this? All right, is there any echo? No. Great. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me once again this evening. I'm really excited, as Kelly mentioned, to present to you the final draft of the Envision Sandy 2050 Comprehensive Plan. Kelly did go ahead and kind of steal my show a little bit. And most of the key points that he just mentioned, I do show graphically in these slides. But as he said, it's been a long journey, a long road. I think we kicked this work off in 2021 with a significant amount of outreach and engagement around the visioning project, or the visioning portion of the comprehensive plan, which really gave this document legs. So here we are finally in the adoption proceedings for this document. I will share some slides that you have all seen in the past, but I think it's really nice to remind ourselves of the people and the places that we've been and interacted with. We had a really fantastic CAC that was incredibly engaged in our outreach and just generally guiding this entire process. We were at numerous community events and activities over the last several years, promoting the comprehensive plan process and the visioning process overall. We even did some targeted outreach to our Spanish-speaking community in Sandy as well, really trying to extend the breadth and depth of our outreach for this process. That visioning work was fairly monumental in that it did lead to these 6 key themes that we crafted from all the feedback we got through kind of the 2 key questions we asked in the visioning process. You know, what makes Sandy special today, and what about Sandy would you like to change for the future? This helped create a language bank for understanding how people describe what they love about their community, what they want to see here in the future, that we really hope we captured well in the vision statement. The vision is broad, it's aspirational, it sets a tone for what Sandy may look and feel like in 2050. It also identifies key themes that are uncovered through policy statements in the comprehensive plan itself. You may recognize yourself in some of these images. We did have a really successful public meeting that was a culmination of the visioning process, but then also started taking the conversation a little bit further in identifying what are those policy decisions we want to make around these topic areas, whether it's transportation, infrastructure, housing, economic development, etc. We got a lot of big ideas, as we like to call them, from that outreach that very much made their way into the language that we have in our policy statements. Alongside that work, we also worked with Geos Institute out of Ashland. They do community planning around wildfire resiliency with the understanding that we know that Sandy is susceptible to wildfire, and that there was a particular interest in mitigating natural hazards and improving just community resilience to those natural hazards. We had a really successful 2-part day-long workshop with a variety of different service providers and community partners in and around Sandy and the region to discuss what are Sandy's key vulnerabilities related to natural hazards, and then coming together to identify some cross-sector solutions to addressing those vulnerabilities. That is all compiled in a natural hazards vulnerability report, as well as a resiliency action plan that was once a part of this document as an appendix, but has now been removed and will be undertaken through a separate process if the city wishes to do that. But it has a lot of really fantastic information, and is also reflective of some pretty amazing collaboration among a lot of different people in the room. So not to be missed. And of course, our Community Advisory Committee, Commissioner Crosby, thank you so much for being a part of that in your time. But that was also a really impactful channel for just receiving and digesting information for this comprehensive plan process. So your final document, I did delete the slide originally that had the comparison of your old document with the new document, but it is there and it does look different. I would also hope that this document substantially, or in substantive terms, really helps you in making better land use decisions in the future. You'll see that the document is more condensed than the last comprehensive plan, both for readability and then also just applicability. We have organized 2 to 5 goals for each of the 6 vision themes, and we have about 4 to 10 policies or so for each of those different goal statements. The document also does have a matrix at the beginning of it that helps crosswalk how the themes or how the statewide planning goals are applicable to each of the 6 themes. Yeah, so the document is much more user-friendly. It's a lot more graphic. I think it also just puts, describes Sandy at a moment in time. It looks back to where Sandy was and also describes where Sandy is today and where it might go in the future. My hope is that in 20 years, maybe, you know, there are some policies or goals that reach the end of its shelf life, but that this document helps create a path forward for how to update those goals and policies, and that you feel really equipped with the information that you need, and that you can quickly identify the information that needs to be updated if it does need to be updated, and kind of where to go from there. Obviously these comprehensive plans don't get updated all that frequently, once every 20 years, sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less. So, you know, I'll be very, it'll be interesting to see kind of how this materializes, how this document works for you over the next kind of half generation or so. So some key updates to the document. We came to you at a joint planning commission and city council work session in June. And we got some feedback from that work session. We had also presented to you some edits that we were considering, from DLCD feedback as well. So we've incorporated all of that work that we presented in June. These are just some bullet points of some of those key changes. So we did remove one of the appendices that was related to the natural hazards and resiliency action plan. We added a bit more information to the timeline. We also added some additional narrative to the background sections for natural resources and the natural hazards section, just to speak more directly to managing floods, landslides, and earthquake hazards, as well as protection of streams, wetlands, habitats, etc., just to comply with the goal 7. I forgot the goals, oh my goodness, to comply with some of the statewide planning goals and what you need to cover in those background sections. We also added 1 or 2 additional policies for Goal 5 compliance per DLCD guidance. We did also update just the numbering of all of the policies, so every policy has a unique number. And then we also updated some images and photos throughout. So those are some of the key changes from the document you saw a few months ago to what's in front of you tonight. And so for the purpose of this hearing, the key considerations for you all as a commission is, do you feel like this process accurately reflects your understanding of the priorities that were uncovered during the community visioning process? Do the goals and policies accurately reflect your understanding of the factual basis and trends from the supporting reference documents and capture the revisions discussed in prior joint work sessions? I'll note that the comprehensive plan is kind of an umbrella for all of the supporting documents and planning efforts that the city has undertaken, like your new TSP, your new EOA, your parks master plan update, your transit master plan. So you are, I mean, talk about a community that has done so much work to have a comprehensive plan that can pull from that recent, all of those recent efforts is really, just really nice. So kudos. And then finally, does the Planning Commission recommend approval of 24-040 CPA? Did I say that correctly? Yeah. To City Council at their public hearing on October 7th, 2024. And I'm available for any questions, of course.
Perfect. Public testimony. This is the chance if anybody's hiding in the hall to be able to testify. Nope. All right. Kelly, do you guys have anything else to add?
I didn't. Like I said, I think people should be proud of the document and proud of the last 2.5 to 4 years with the work that was accomplished with this process. It's a long time, but I will say that it's a lot better and a lot more efficient than what some communities in Oregon have went through over the last few decades. So I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think we did a pretty good job of moving it forward in a pretty quick timeline, actually.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll open it up to us then. Or I guess so if we wanted to close the public hearing, I'll take that as well.
Would you like a motion to start the discussion?
Or we can either start discussion or close the public hearing, either one.
What's the public hearing?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Perfect, discussion.
Well, I think it's great work. Been involved in some parts of it, but it's a very comprehensive plan. And I think it really serves the community well moving into the future.
It's an amazing document.
Yep.
It really is. It makes the previous one look so bland. The pictures are just wonderful.
Yeah.
That are in it. I went through it, read the whole thing. I've got a list of things that are, several of them are nothing more than proofreading edits. So I can either mention them or I can give them to somebody. It doesn't matter to me if you can understand my notes. But none of them, I'm gonna go through them maybe while somebody else is. The history section was interesting. There was a sawmill behind every stump. I loved it.
I mean, it's however you want to do it. If you
Yeah.
think we can cover it in the meeting and that would be the most efficient way, or if you want to give them to us, it's really up to you guys how you want to do it.
I don't know how chair wants to, we want to go through different people if they have other ways or the comments that they made that.
Yeah, if yours are mainly just minor edits, then let's try
Some
to
of
get
them
the big
are-
ideas out and
Some of them are, periods outside of quotation marks, kinds of things that an English teacher would catch. But a couple of them are questions that I had. I'll give you an example. And some of these, somebody would just say, well, that's because, and oh, okay, then that makes sense. But on page 25 of the 25 in the comprehensive plan, and it is page 80 in the little gray box
In the packet, yeah.
in the packet. Let me see if I can get to there quickly. My mouse is. Okay. 879. 80. Talks about. There in 2008. The millennial. It makes the comment, through the Urban Renewal Agency, which, let me see. The city established a facade improvement grant program through the Urban Renewal, which transformed the city's downtown over the last few decades. My note that I got that the facade program started in 2009, which is 15 years ago. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't describe that as being decades. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it'll make, some of these things will make the report perfect. Not because they're from me.
I had a similar go huh, when I read that, but just moved on. But I did go, huh.
Those are the kinds that, I mean, just go back up to page 22 in the staff or the report itself. And it's 77 in the staff report. What I write here. I wrote down reference to this building. Oh, yeah, the second paragraph. Ludwig Hoffman constructed this building for his new business. What building? Is it the one in the photo? It's just funny that no other where in the narrative do we just, if we mentioned it, it's just, constructed the pictured building for it or something like that. it just threw me. And again, some of these are weird Crosbyisms, so.
No, I think that one's a good one, mainly because it's an accessibility type thing as well. So anybody who's reading with a screen reader wouldn't necessarily see that picture right there with it.
I'll just move along until somebody stops me. Page 28 of the plan. This is the slowest scrolling mouse I've ever had.
Are we on the demographics?
Yes, where we work in the middle. And I'm not sure where this, okay, right above where we work,
In the commuting flows?
let's see. 80% of the workers commute, yeah. The sentence says about 20% of all people who work in Sandy also lived in Sandy. I wanted it to say live in Sandy. To get the tenses the same.
But doesn't that equate to a period of time?
Well, then you would say who worked in Sandy also lived in Sandy. So it would go one way or the other, so that the tenses are the same.
Be present.
The sentence after that is present. But y'all can work that out. Let's see. Page 31. of the plan. District is smaller. Okay, the second paragraph. I would just take off the particle, the article. The district is smaller, more intimate, and is intended to be pedestrian oriented. Rather than the district is a smaller, more intimate. You see it, Kelly?
Yeah. So you just want to remove the word a?
Yeah. That's probably the original intent.
The first sentence of the second paragraph.
Yes.
Yep. The district is smaller, more intimate, and is. Oh, page 50 of the plan. Again, those pictures are just amazing.
What is the next one? Page 50? I'm just
Page
taking
50
some
of the
notes here
plan,
for
yeah.
the minutes and then also for Patrick Higgins. Page 50, so
Uh-huh.
let me get down there, hold on.
Yeah, it's taking my mouse a while.
It's the background section, public involvement.
Got it. Okay, I'm there.
You get there faster than I can there. Maybe this one.
I cheated.
Okay. Oh, there's just an extra space in the one that says notice to adjacent. I'm sorry, I have weird eyes that extra spaces just jump out at me. Now, where is it?
Oh, there's an extra space after the word parcels.
Yep,
Is that what you're talking about?
yep, before the comma.
Yep. Good catch.
And under the planning commission description, I just noted, it doesn't mention anything about the planning commission approving land use applications. So I don't know if it says what we do. So I'm not sure if that would be, if it's necessary or not. The planning commission reviews all amendments and updates to the conference. I guess it's reflecting on the planning commission's role regards the comprehensive plan.
I think so, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, more so than the comprehensive list of what the planning commission
Yeah.
does.
Right, makes sense, makes sense. Page 51, right next thing, solve, S-O-L-V is in there somewhere and it should be all caps as it is
For the
in
cleanup day,
95. Page 95, it's all caps, so just to be consistent.
is that for the cleanup?
Yeah, I think it's only one place in there.
Solve Sandy, it's the second line from the bottom. Up
Yeah,
from the
that's,
bottom.
yeah, it should be all capitalized.
Yeah. And then 52. Two. Shit. Okay, ant farm. This one, and again, somebody can just say, oh, this is why it's here. Under ant farm, it's an organization that owns a local cafe and bakery, which provides kitchen, coffee, and customer service skills. Trying to figure out how a cafe and bakery provides skills.
I think it should say probably teaches instead of. provides.
Teaches or provides opportunities or something like that.
Or provides work experience. Skills in the kitchen, coffee and customer service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in town, but.
something, I just,
So maybe in that section, it should say it's a nonprofit organization.
yeah, it does under the Actors Theater. But again, I think the museum is probably nonprofits, not mentioned there.
So you want to describe it's a nonprofit organization and then change that sentence that it, change the sentence about providing younger people kitchen, coffee and customer service skills.
Yes,
experience.
just it's funny that the kitchen and the cafe can't provide skills.
We can add the word and, owns a local cafe and bakery and provides work skills.
Work,
And skill
Service
training
skills.
or
work-based skill.
as Breezy had a possible wording there too. Okay, 56. Stop me if I'm going too fast.
I'm gonna go back to that one for a second,
Okay,
just because I was looking at it in context of the rest of them in the section, and it's not. I'm over it. Sorry, I'm thinking to myself, because it's in the context of key civic, arts, and cultural spaces. And, you know, I don't know, I was getting caught up in the teaching young people skills pieces of it, and I was kind of, maybe it was overshadowing the space, that it's actually just, you know, they provide space for you know, all those other sort of programs as well. And I was kind of missing that they actually had the space for it and they weren't just a nonprofit who offered these activities, I guess is.
The Educational Assistance Center.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I found the word center, and that's initially where I kind of got over it. But when I was reading just services, recreation programs, I'm like, all right, well, is it a civic space? Is it an art space? Is it a cultural, like what was there? And so,
mhm.
but like I said, I moved on as soon as I got Educational Assistance Center again.
Okay,
Say the next one's on page 56.
56. My notes say the department also could publish data that is already collecting internally, and my note to myself was, what department? Where is this? There, it's almost, that's the next to the last sentence on the right there under open data and civic technology. Says the department also could publish data, and my question myself was, what department are we talking about?
We could say city departments. to encompass any department where it's applicable.
Up at the top?
No, yeah, at the beginning of the sentence.
Okay. Okay, 65. Okay. Somewhere it says there are additional programs ran by the department specific to Standy. It should be run, I believe. Where is that?
The last sentence of the first paragraph.
You probably know this so well. We just say a phrase and you tell us what page it's on. Okay. The last sentence of which one?
Of the first paragraph.
Oh, okay. There are additional programs run by the department specific to Sandy.
I would almost suggest two things, rephrasing that sentence to say additional programs run by the department specific to Sandy include, and then bullet out the next two paragraphs, so it's a little bit more clear. And then remove the extra space on the last bullet of that page.
The helmet program.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
So you want to change the last sentence, the first paragraph, bullet point.
Gun locks and unwanted firearms. And then remove extra space under helmet program.
Got it.
Yeah.
I actually did the child safety seats once when I had my first child and I did it correctly.
Oh.
Somebody else I knew went there and they did it all wrong. So I was like, I'm gonna take mine and I got a thumbs up.
I did it for mine as well.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, this is my first child seat I was putting in.
Yeah.
And you don't want to put those in over and over again.
Yeah, well, and you want to learn if you're doing it wrong the first time, because if you put it in bad, it could be bad for your child. Yeah, they're a pain to take out, that's for sure.
Now, I didn't make a note of where this is, but it goes from 65 to the text I copied was US 26 east of Southeast Tennick Road / Wolf Drive. So it must be on the transportation on the next page.
It's on page 66. First bullet.
Okay. Do we want to, we're talking about the south side of 26, aren't we? The sidewalk? It sounds like there's no sidewalk there. On some stretches of highway, particularly roads. Okay, these gaps are most significant along the following roads: US 26 east of Southeast Tennick.
Yeah, these must be sidewalk gaps that were identified in your TSP.
It's actually on the north side too for a little bit. Between the two Vista loops. There's some section that is actually just a wide shoulder with no sidewalk still.
Okay, so that could stand.
Eventually, hopefully there won't be in the next 10 years, because that's the only remnant. Because you remember we put that big sidewalk on ODOT,
Mhm.
and then the new subdivisions have created sidewalk to the east of that, but there is an area that still does not have sidewalk, unfortunately.
Right, and the south side is
The south side has a lot more
pretty
issues with
much
sidewalk, yeah.
vacant.
Yep,
Okay. With
Yeah.
that segment that is missing, then that can, it would be a.
yeah, that, if that
State.
segment was filled in, then it would just be the south side at this point. Yeah, that like $3 million sidewalk project did a lot of work on the north side. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Okay, 67.
so nothing on page 66 then.
No, that
Okay.
one, because of you pointing out that there is a gap on the north side. Looking for the word. What I have is they can be separated or adjacent to the streets right of way, and streets needs to be possessive. Last sentence. They
Yep.
can be separated or adjacent to the streets, be apostrophe, yes.
Okay.
73, this is just another, and I wasn't sure about this one, so any English teachers can chime in. Policy 4.1. Maintain the livability of Sandy through well-connected. I want to make that a hyphenated word. But I could be correct.
I don't think it has to be, but I think it could be. Which I think is, for a lot of hyphenated words, is actually,
You know how you test for a hyphenated word? You say them separately. So you'd say Sandy through well transportation facilities doesn't make sense. Through connected transportation facilities, it does. So well connected makes it one word, and that adds the sense to it.
I mean, yeah, we could add it if you want, doesn't bother me.
Doesn't matter to me.
Page 73, I mean, it would be a
Yeah.
simple fix.
Yeah, we jump on to 78. $13.8.
Sorry, I'm adding this one, so,
Oh, yeah.
what was the next page?
78, policy 13.8. To the greatest extent possible, incorporate energy resilience into water system designs to maintain adequate levels of service during direct disruptions due to power outages, fires, and extreme storms. My question myself was, are those the only three possible things that could produce disruptions? Yeah, I wanted to add natural disasters.
We can easily add that.
We could add natural disasters.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
It lists three as if that's the only ones.
So we could put natural disasters on. In policy 13.8,
Yes.
yeah, that makes sense.
Catch off. Page 78. Wait. I wrote page 78, policy 13.9. Oh, yeah. This is coordinate with Mount Hood National Forest. How do you coordinate with a forest? Isn't there some other entity?
It's a US Forest Service.
That's what is used someplace else. Elsewhere, I mean, noted, you use US Forest Service and the Oregon Department of Forestry. That's in 21.6. It just struck me, how do you coordinate with a forest?
I think the intent was to say USFS.
That makes sense.
We can modify that.
Page 82. This is more of a chuckle to me. having lived in Alaska a few years. Where is it? It talks about cold winters. Yeah, right under temperature. Sandy's climate is described as Mediterranean with warm, but generally not hot summers and cold winters.
Mediterranean.
I'm not saying, I'm not asking for any change. It just caught me as cold winters.
Where's the Mediterranean? That,
Probably came from the climate primer. I'm not sure if
I read it in there.
it
Yeah.
described, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably some term that's used.
Yeah,
That matches.
there,
Matches up.
there may be like very, very broad categorizations of temperature bands and on the earth, and maybe that's like a very broad categorization.
I think our weather's more like Northern Europe than
Mhm.
Southern Europe. I don't know, that's just my thought on it, but whatever.
Black Forest.
Yeah.
Mediterranean is everything from the Arctic to the equator.
Yeah.
Do you want us to change anything there or?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
It just made me chuckle. Okay, page 84.
20 years from now, they'll look back and go, wow, they have Mediterranean. We're really screwed up this earth.
We need to leave that in, just see if people read it. You know, if somebody mentioned it, we know they read it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we do grow grapes in this area,
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the Willamette Valley, which is very Mediterranean. That was-
Brussels.
well, it's similar to when you tell people that Oregon has a rainforest.
Yeah.
You know, and our rainforest always goes to, you know, the South American climates. And yet we have a rainforest. So it would be very similar. That's what they call the Mediterranean.
Sandy, Mykonos, same place.
We should change our slogan, where the Mediterranean meets the Northwest.
84. Floods and landslides. In the middle, and this one is just, I needed an explanation. In 2024, Clackamas County NHMP determined that Sandy's probability of flooding is high and that the city's vulnerability to flooding is moderate.
Yeah, so
Somebody
that's,
parse that for me.
that's basically saying that they think, which I don't actually agree with, but this is what they think. Is that our chance of having a flooding event is high. But there's not much vulnerability because not many properties would be affected by the flooding event.
Okay, so
So we're
one,
not vulnerable to it because it would affect like. There's like 11 properties with national flood insurance in Sandy.
so it's more of a vulnerability as a scale issue.
Correct.
In the natural hazards mitigation plan, the plan evaluates risk and vulnerability as two separate things. So you can have a high risk, low vulnerability because maybe you have good infrastructure, or low risk but high vulnerability.
Mhm. Okay,
So it's saying that we're likely to have a flood, but it's not gonna do much to Sandy, basically, is what it's basically saying.
mhm. Page, also on page 85. This page. Where's this one? I'm looking for moderates. Okay. Remember this one. I gotta find it. Talks about in the next 35. The next 35-75 years. Where's that?
It's about 4 lines down on the second paragraph.
Okay. The subduction zone is moderate. That comma needs to be inside the quotes. Meaning one incident may occur within the next 35 to 70 years. So it's not gonna occur from now until 35 years from now? Is that what it's saying? That it's in this window?
In the next 35 to 75 years, so between now and 35 and now and 75.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it.
Okay, I see it within the next 35. Why not? Why not just say the next 75 years? What's the difference? What's the 35 there for?
Think maybe as a scientist, there is a difference that maybe we're unsure of. This was pulled directly from your natural hazards mitigation plan. Yeah, I mean, I think my understanding from that section that described earthquake vulnerability in Sandy is that they were tracking earthquakes by time. And so the risk of that magnitude earthquake is higher in that 35 to 75 time period, given the prevalence of those earthquakes in other like similar time periods, I guess. So what I mean to say is that I think there is a reasoning for tracking the time period here, though it probably is over most of our heads.
I do look at a lot of that stuff, and there is different time periods where it's every 250 to 300 years, let's say. And so when you're in that window, it's probably coming from that end of the period where it's the 35 is the 250 and the 75 is the like 300 years. So it's kind of cutting that in half, or not exact numbers, but that would be my
Yeah, it's
guess.
just I'm fine with leaving it. It just, it got me cocking my head. What are we saying? What are we saying here?
I mean, that whole paragraph's pretty interesting.
Yeah, if there's a scientific explanation, that's fine. Okay, page 95.
Sure, it's my brother. Geologist. My brother-in-law's a geologist. No, he's a quality environmental.
What page did you say?
95
If you would know, just that phrasing.
in under the 2022 Parks and Trails Master Plan. Kind of in the middle is the sentence that says this master plan is being revised and
good catch.
readopted in 2022.
Should be past tense.
Was, okay.
Just in general, is there a way to change the master plan phrasing?
Just say,
It would ever possible remove it?
The sentence?
No, the term master plan. Just to be more equitable, that's kind of master plan, I think, in a lot of ways is going away as being used.
but is that, that's what it's called, isn't it?
Right, like the 1997 Parks Master Plan, I wouldn't necessarily say change that because that's what it
Oh.
was called. But anything that refers to like this plan as being a master plan.
We could drop the word master in that sentence because we drop it further on in that paragraph as well.
Yeah, or just, just in general, because I think I prefer not to use kind of that phrasing.
Mhm.
Was it on the document though?
It is.
Just in reference to the plan, that it's, yes, master is the name of the plan, but I think we can easily say the plan is being revised and readopted rather than describing it as the master plan. We say that later on, the plan provides guidance for managing continued
Mhm.
growth, et cetera. So we don't need to use the master as an adjective for the plan.
I'll put it in here, what we want to say. Good catch though. That's probably because that was written while that was still going on.
Page 99.
What'd you say?
99.
99?
The 1, 2, 3, 4.
bullet, trails and trail connections, Tickle Creek to Cazadero, connect with Timberline Trail. Now, when I hear Timberline Trail, that's the 40-mile one that goes around Mount Hood. That's called the Timberline Trail, isn't it? So I didn't know what Timberline Trail.
I think it's that one. You gotta remember, this is from the community engagement process. So people had big ideas like a wave and Whitewater Park is on one of the bullet points. And
Okay, so if it's
that's
just,
not gonna happen in any of our lifetimes, I can tell you, because of, unless it's privately owned. But it won't, the city won't do that, guarantee
Okay.
that.
So
Yeah.
that's just a reporting of some citizen comment, and there's really,
So some of these ideas are pretty big ideas, which is great, but some of them are probably not too realistic, like that one. I mean, eventually it might connect up there, but
It'd be cool if it did.
not in the life of this comp plan, it won't.
Mhm.
Cause what is that, probably 16, 17 miles from here?
So there's the Timberline to Town Trail that goes all the way to Zigzag, Welch's,
Yeah, that's true. So yeah,
technically to Welch's.
that's even 17 miles from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on that trail. That's a good point.
yeah.
The problem is, as you go west more, there's more and more private property,
Cause that trail follows the highway for
does.
a while.
and it's a lot that's in federal lands.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm. You run out of federal lands
You
as you
do.
get closer to Sandy.
If you can figure out how to get a Whitewater Park here, let me know though. I'll definitely sign your petition.
Would it count as a pool?
Sure.
What could we make one with? Like I saw the Olympics.
The water's gonna have to be warm though, because you won't
Yeah.
really go in it much.
This is just a note to myself on some of these, policies. And I don't know where they would go. Government, maybe management. I just made a note to myself about something addressing the building code. Does the council want to have a policy that has something, and I don't have any evidence that it's otherwise, that would say the building code to make it user-friendly or, I don't know what else. And there may not be, it was just kind of a random thought that I had that as I was reading the policies, it mentioned development code and so forth. And the building code, I just wondered, would the city want to have a policy that somehow directed attention to making the building code better or something? I don't know.
Is this on one of the pages?
Reader friendly.
No, it was just kind of after having read everything, it was just like, oh, there wasn't anything in.
If anything, it would go under goal 32, land use planning.
Like user friendly.
Like
Yeah.
32.5.
I mean, that's the word that came to my mind, but I don't know that it is, I'm not saying it isn't user friendly. I'm just saying that's a big thing.
Are you talking about the state building code?
No, City of Sandy's,
Ours is pretty small.
is it? Okay.
Yeah, because it mainly
Because it
just references the state.
references.
Yeah,
Okay. Again, it was just came to my mind.
yeah, ours is. I don't know how many pages, but it's probably no more than a dozen. The actual building code section in our
Okay.
code, because it mainly has reference to all the state codes and they get adopted every year, different modifications still.
Mhm. Page 120. The very last sentence. Missing a closing parentheses.
Wait, where?
The very last sentence. 2015 to 2019 averages by almost 15%.
I just read it and still didn't see it.
And the only other one that I had that I didn't reference first is way back on page 5. It's an easy one to see. There's a line break after the word ultimately. There's a big white space there.
What page was that?
5.
I'm just trying to get all these notes here for them. And just got off the document. Okay, page 5.
Second paragraph.
I don't think AI could have caught all those. Yeah, I think, you know, that was pretty good. Thank you.
I need to introduce you to my wife. She tears apart my writing like that.
Well, I think it's also reflective of the quality of the report. That we're not sitting here, of course, we've looked at it for so many times, you know, we're not picking apart or finding things and having questions over policies and stuff like that. That part is just, it's so well done. It was really a beautiful, and I echo your comments, Kelly, about being proud of it.
Did you have anything else?
Nope, now I'm done.
All right.
Thank you for your
No, thank you.
tolerance.
Commissioner Poland, Commissioner Vincent, did you have anything you wanted to add in?
No. No, the report reads beautifully, and I had a few markups, but Jerry got them all.
All right. With that, I will just say, echo the thank yous that have been made for the report and how awesome it is. Just a few calls on my part. I really appreciate two things about the community engagement. One, that it was there. I have given it as an example multiple times now outside of this process to different folks as a way to really do it correctly and a way that I think actually worked, because I started following this before I was on planning commission, hearing those ideas at the council meeting. I attended at least a half dozen of those community events that were pictured and, you know, kind of listened over the shoulder to some of those conversations. I see, this is that second part, is that I see those things in the report, those things that were mentioned in the report, the things that I've brought up and that others have added in. I can see those in here where they weren't before. Also, I can see things that have been brought up that aren't in here, which I also thank you for, as it's meant to represent kind of not just one person's views, but really what the community wanted. And, you know, some really weird things going down some rabbit holes that, you know, aren't in here. And so I think it really accurately represents what I've heard from that process, which I really appreciate. I also appreciated that it's documented so well in here. So in 10 years, when folks go back and go, well, how did they even come up with this? They really understand what it is. Like what we're doing for that past report, where we're like, oh, we're just assuming that it was some beard sitting in a room somewhere, you know, who wrote it down on paper. But they'll really know that process that went in and that it really was a community vision and not just, you know, council or planning commission or whatever, or, you know, somebody we hired just to copy whatever it is that Benville did. So I really appreciate that. It is well written. I just kept, I read it all because it was easy to read. It made a lot of sense. It was enjoyable. So for all of those reasons that have been stated before, thank you.
I mainly reviewed the natural resources section because I previously commented on the rest of it before that was done. And the only thing I found was on page 105 in policy 26.3. It mentions the Soil and Water Conservation District, and that should just be Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, because there's 45 of those in the state, so might be good to call it Clackamas.
What policy was that again, Commissioner?
Pardon?
What policy number was that?
26.3.
Perfect.
I'm also on the board of that entity, so.
All right.
I have one final question that, kind of unrelated, but I'm sure you've done other, comprehensive plans, and I would imagine that there is an element of boilerplating. And I don't say that in a negative way. When you kind of go into a city and you kind of know what you want to do, and it's kind of the same to some regards. What did you find that surprised you about Sandy, or was somewhat unique to Sandy coming to us?
Yeah, you know, what I thought one of the most exciting parts of the process was the emphasis on natural hazards and resiliency planning. The stakeholder workshops that we had were pretty impressive in terms of the people that were in the room and the conversations that were had. That is a process that I do not see baked into many other comprehensive plan processes in this state. And from a personal and professional standpoint, find that to be a very valuable piece that's often missing. So kudos to your staff who identified that in the RFP. And yeah, so.
Interesting. Thanks. I was just curious.
Yeah, and I will be following up with the appendice that was dropped as part of this process. That will be something that we're gonna be following up for adoption in 2025. At this point, honestly, I just kind of want to wait to see what happens in the next couple months and then come with an agenda item in the early part of 2025. I think right now would be kind of bad timing.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move that the Planning Commission recommend the City Council approve file 240-040 CPA, the proposed 2050 comprehensive plan amendment at their public hearing on October 7th. And I don't know if I need to say it. I could say it with minor corrections if necessary.
I will gladly second that.
Excellent. We have a motion from Commissioner, second from Crosby. For this one, Kelly, can we? Oh, sure.
Commissioner Crosby,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
So making these little furry boxes. This.
Yes.
Next video, turn this one off. My son has one life.
Chair Whitman.
Yes.
Say goodbye.
The motion is approved. Thank you all once again, and thank you staff as well.
Big central line.
Great. I think we have done it. One last call for anything from the commissioners before we close it out. Tell any other things? All right, maybe September meetings stand by, although I think less and less likely, right?
I won't, I'm
I
out of
think
country.
October will be the next,
October.
or November. We'll have to meet and figure that out, but September I won't, because neither one of these items was continued.
Okay,
I won't have anything for that meeting yet.
perfect. Well, until we meet again, it's 8:13, we'll consider it adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Great job.
Nice work, nice work. Thank you for being